friends. Welcome to another episode of College Town Talk. I'm Shan Stout.
And I'm Jonathan Frank.
Well, Jonathan, we'd like to keep things light on this show, and that's kind of the way we roll. But today I've got my tissues ready, as well as a notebook and pen, because our guest has a truly inspiring story that will move you, challenge you, and make you want to take notes, and we may tear up a little.
That's right, Shan. Today we're talking with Amanda Juetten. She's a recent Tennessee Tech graduate who earned her degree earlier this year as a 47-year-old mother of 5 and grandmother. Now, that would be worthy of an interview in and of itself, but there's one more thing you should know about Amanda. She is completely blind. Despite those challenges, Amanda's story is one of triumph. She pushed through obstacles to graduate magna cum laude with a degree in professional studies and is now back at Tennessee Tech to pursue her master's degree. Amanda, welcome to College Town Talk.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Amanda, if your name is familiar to some of our listeners, it may be because earlier this year, the university published a story about your journey, and it caught on like wildfire. So many people were inspired by your message. And I loved getting to speak with you for that story. We spoke over the phone, but this is actually our first time meeting in person. But that story, you were profiled in FoxNews.com, the New York Post, Fox 17 News here locally, News Channel 5, WBAR, the Tennessean. We have not spoken since all of that. So now that you're on the other side of that media frenzy, what was that season of life like for you, and why do you think your story resonated with so many people?
I actually got a little tired of hearing about myself. I remember just talking to the different reporters that came calling and saying, you know, I like attention, but I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't go seeking this attention. And so it was a little overwhelming. I actually had to quit sharing the stories on Facebook because I was like, if I'm getting sick of hearing about myself, I'm sure my friends and family are. So I kind of scaled back a little bit. So I don't think everyone knows the full, at least the people that know me don't know the full spectrum of attention that garnered. I think people look at stories like this and I don't want to say are inspired, because I feel like I just get up and go through my day just normal like everybody else, and there's no inspiration in normal. But my husband had to remind me, hey, not everybody does this in their 40s. A lot of blind people make it through college, no problem, but not everybody does this in their 40s. Not everybody does this when they have, 5 kids spread across the country. All my kids are adults and living on their own and taking care of themselves. Thank you, Jesus. But we have to fly to Connecticut. We have to fly to San Diego, Colorado to visit with our kids. And it even takes me a few days to get my local daughter over to my house to dinner. But not everybody is trying to wrangle college classes and making sure they have the right textbook and all of that stuff and dealing with those stressors. So my husband had to remind me, yeah, you might feel like this is just your normal everyday, but not everybody does this. At 40, with 5 kids, with a grandson, with, those things in your life, much less with their eyes closed.
Well, I'm with your husband, Dan. I agree with him because the challenges are real. Even if that was your only barrier, is the fact that you were in your later 40s. My mother went back to school in her mid-40s, and we admired her. She went back to school with my youngest brother, and they went to college together and graduated together. And we were so proud of her. And that was just a mom in the height of her life of raising her kids and getting them off to school and getting them on their merry way and trying to make reasonable young adults of all of us. I mean, that was a big deal. And so for you to do that and to have even more barriers, there are so many challenges here to your story to unpack. But one of my favorite things that I heard happened at your commencement. And I love the fact that, President Oldham, apparently, let's recap for the listeners this experience. You're sitting at commencement, you're listening to President Oldham, surrounded by thousands of people, and he starts talking about you. And you didn't know this was going to happen. Then he cues up a surprise video message on the Jumbotron, which turned out to be from your sweet husband, Dan, saying how proud he was of you. And I can only imagine there was not a dry eye in the house. What did that moment feel like for you? Because it was already a big deal to be graduating, to reach this epic milestone through all the challenges. And how also could Dan keep it a secret?
Oh, well, my words when I realized President Oldham was talking about me was, "Are you kidding?" Nobody told me they were going to do this. And I actually said that. And then when my husband's voice came on, it was like, I actually blushed. I was like, wow, I have no idea how he did it, how he kept it a secret, because we both have a hard time keeping secrets and not just saying, hey, this is what's going on. Sometimes the anticipation of getting to that moment is, just as exciting as the surprise. But I was definitely surprised by it. At one moment, I was like, did he just call me a bulldozer? Because he did. Just bulldozing through every challenge. And it actually is a great analogy, but I had to give him a little bit of a hard time. Like, you called me a bulldozer in front of everybody.
Well, it was, it was such a neat moment at that ceremony. And it was really fun kind of, being a co-conspirator with your husband on that and kind of planning with him. We were texting back and forth. And if I remember correctly, you all were traveling. So it wasn't like you were at your home, and I think you were maybe at a hotel.
We were in Memphis. Yeah.
Yeah. So that made it a little bit harder, I think, for him to kind of, get away and tape this message with, unbeknownst to you. But it all worked out. And it was, and kind of a funny thing that I don't even know if you know this, but the way that I was trying to get in contact with Dan, and it was your church. The church receptionist gave us the phone number for Dan.
Oh, so. That's fantastic, because I kept wondering, how in the world did they even get his phone number? It's not like cell phone numbers are listed everywhere these days.
I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty proud of my sleuthing on
You
that
are a great investigator.
Now, Amanda, when we spoke earlier this year and I asked about your experience at Tennessee Tech, there was one office in particular that I know you wanted to shout out, which is our Accessible Education Center. And they've got such a great team over there, Ed Beeson, Jody Fox Purdue. For our listeners who may not be familiar with the center, which many of us know on campus as the AEC for short, what can you tell us about your interactions with the team there? And what do you see as the value of a place like the AEC for the broader student community?
So the assistance that I got there was always helpful. It was always, I'll do whatever I can to make this accessible for you, from books to videos to images that are built into the modules, that when I read it with a screen reader, it just says image. And to try to express that to an instructor, and I don't know how to fix it. I just know what it's doing for me. And so to have the Accessible Education Center, Jody and the others that are over there, to be able to say, let me work with your professor on how to make this accessible, and then show them how easy it is to make these things accessible to so that future students don't even have to ask. It's already accessible. So it was pretty amazing to be able to work with that team in making all that happen. I think for the broader student body, having less stress in my life as a student allows me to be more involved in other places. So being able to not carry the burden of accessibility for myself, how do I make this accessible for me, since nobody's trying to help me do that? It really frees me up to be part of the broader community. And when people with disabilities are able to be a part of the broader community, it makes the broader community a better place. It brings diversity into the broader community when we're not isolated, trying to spend all of our time just getting that image described, just getting that book put into an accessible format.
Well, that means a lot to me, and I appreciate what Tech's doing to be able to help these boundaries not be hard for you, because the easier this is, because you already are coming into this as a challenge to, I'm going to get my degree, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do the work. And if it's harder to do the work, if it's harder to be able to understand the content that's being given to you, if you don't have the ability to absorb it in any way and you're hitting these challenges, I can see that would be very demotivating. I'm glad to know you've got a group of advocates that you can go to specifically who are going to stand in that gap for you in any possible way. Now, you may not know this, Amanda, but Cookeville, we are working towards being the most accessibility-friendly community in Tennessee. So we are taking steps every month to be more and more and more accessible. And so that is a broad footprint, a broad challenge for us, because as you know, in your life, not everything is handicap accessible. Not everything has what you need. But speaking of things that you need, we want to talk about a very important man in your life. And we've already spoken of your lovely husband, Dan. And I'm not talking about Dan right now. We're talking about the wonderful fella that's at my feet right now, and that is your guide dog, Colonel, who is just lovely. Tell us about that journey. How were you paired up with him? How has that changed your life? What is that bond like?
So Colonel's probably got his head on your feet right now. Yeah, that's his favorite thing to do. He thinks he's a little too good to put his head on the floor.
I love it.
But I got paired with Colonel through Southeastern Guide Dogs, which is now called Dogs Inc. in Palmetto, Florida. They provide guide dogs and service dogs for veterans, and they provide companion dogs for Gold Star families and for children with vision loss who may one day want to have a guide dog. So they get that responsibility of having a dog before they move into the responsibility of a guide dog, which is another level of responsibility above just having a dog. It was a 2-year journey for me from the day that I submitted my application to the day I graduated from training with Colonel was 2 years. In that 2 years, I spent a good stint at Colorado Center for the Blind, where I got full independence training, gained confidence in my skills as a blind person, which was so important because my life was just opened. Every day, every week, every month that I spent in that training, my world expanded. I learned how to make my world accessible when it's not. I learned how to integrate myself into the broader community, to participate in life again. And then came along Colonel, and it opened that world a little bit more for me because he's a different way to travel. I had been learning with a cane how to travel, and with a cane, you're looking for obstacles, you're looking for landmarks, you're looking for things that tell you where you're at, where you need to turn, where the door is. With my cane, I might be looking for a rug, a welcome mat, and I find that rug and the door's going to be in front of it. You don't put a welcome mat in front of a wall, you put it in front of the door. So you find that mat, there's the door, I'm on my way out. Well, with Colonel, I tell him to find the door, and he avoids obstacles. He's going to move me around chairs and tables and people most of the time. Every once in a while, he wants me to make a new friend and bumps me into somebody. But for the most part, he's navigating through the obstacles. I never touch those things, and before I know it, I feel the mat under my feet, and his nose is at that door under the handle, ready for me to just reach out, grab the handle, open it, and walk through the door. So it's a whole different way to travel. But then there's the bond of friendship that exists beyond just having a guide dog. I can tell you my life would be the same. I'd still be doing all the same things I'm doing today, even if I didn't have Colonel. But it's a lot of fun to have him by my side. It's a lot of fun to have him greet people. He likes to greet people, but he keeps working, which is great. Not everybody's service dog can do that. So it's just so important to me to just know that I'm not alone, that I've got somebody by my side either confirming my skills and what I'm navigating through the world when it comes to finding places and finding where I'm going, I have him confirming that my skills are still fresh. I still, made the right decision. Half the time he's telling me, nope, you're going the wrong way, or no, we need to stop here because there's a curb or steps that you didn't know were here. And so he definitely helps me to navigate just a little bit better, just a little bit different than before. But on my first day of in-person classes at Tech, he did not want to go in that building. And he walked back and forth and back and forth. I'm like, right, find the door. Nothing. Just walks. And I'm like, okay, we're not by the building anymore. Turn around. Left, find the door.
Colonel was like,
Nothing.
I've already graduated from school. I don't have to go back to class.
Well, he knew if we go in there, I'm going to be down and under the chair for 2 hours.
Well, Amanda, I can't remember if I told this to you previously, but years ago, my family was what they call a puppy raiser for Southeastern
okay.
guide dogs.
No, you didn't
and
tell me that.
It's a very interesting experience taking a dog with you to every place of public accommodation that is when the dog is not yet really acting like a guide dog, when it's still a puppy and it's the dog might be pooling or but we went to the grocery store, the theater, school, work, church with our dog, and then it was the hardest thing to it's after about a year to then kind of give him up. But it's such a neat program, and it was with Southeastern Guide Dogs.
Awesome.
So I love hearing that's how you were connected to Colonel. Now, Amanda, your life has been all about turning your challenges into your purpose and your mission. That was clear to me the first time that we ever spoke. You've consistently found ways to use your obstacles that you've faced as a vehicle to advocate for your community and to help others. In fact, you serve on the board of the National Federation of the Blind of Tennessee. You are the president of the Upper Cumberland chapter of the National Federation of the Blind, and you're even a past president of the Tennessee Association of Guide Dog Users. And I was just thinking about this because a lot of people in your situation would understandably say, hey, I got to focus on me. I'm a little busy here. I need to focus on myself. But you keep turning the focus on others and finding ways to be of service. Why has that been so important to you?
Well, I certainly understand that I need to focus on me at time because there was some of that. And that really came through faith in God's purpose for me, that He wasn't done with me yet. I really had this free ticket, this blank check of, hey, you can just kick back in life and you don't have to be responsible for anything because nobody's going to expect anything of you now. And it really is true. You can choose to live that life if you want when you have a diagnosis like mine, when you have an outlook on life of you're going to be blind and blind people are useless. And that's really the outlook that I had. That's all I knew up until the time that I lost my sight. And I kind of got that tap on the shoulder from God that said, hey, I kind of still have a purpose for you. I'm not ready for you to sit down yet. And that was when I said, okay, it's not about me and what I want. I need to get up and fulfill whatever that purpose is. And so I said, okay, if I'm going to do this, I have to learn how to live as a blind person. How do you learn to live as a blind person? Well, you seek advice from someone who's been there. You don't ask for financial advice from someone who's filing for bankruptcy. You don't ask for marriage advice from someone who's been married 5 or 6 times. Maybe you ask them how to not stay married, but you're not going to ask them how to stay married. You might say, hey, what are all the things you did that got you there? But you're not going to say, give me advice for how to live successfully like this from someone who hasn't been there, who hasn't done it successfully. So I sought out blind people. I asked for mentors in the blind community. I asked to go spend time with blind people who were doing the thing every single day. And through that process, I came to the National Federation of the Blind, people who are living the lives they want. They're out in the community. They're involved all the way to the higher levels of society and in government spaces. And I said, I just want to learn how to live a normal life. And from there, I realized that they're just living normal lives. They just go about their day. They get up in the morning, they have a bad hair day. They and not because they're blind, it's because everybody has bad hair days sometimes. I began to realize that the struggles of the blind are the struggles of life, of anybody. We have the same struggles, we have the same hopes and dreams as anybody else. We just happen to not be able to see. We just happen to not have visual input. And so my real thrust became learn how to get that input in a non-visual way. And I had to do that with other blind people. That pushed me towards the National Federation of the Blind and the blind community, and realizing the need for blindness skills so that people can get that information in a non-visual way, apply it to their life, and be successful in their life. So from getting that mentoring, getting that teaching from other blind individuals, it's only natural for me to pass it on to other blind individuals, for me to begin serving in the National Federation of the Blind, for me to begin teaching other blind people how to normalize their blindness, how to be a part of their community as a blind person, fully and completely, successfully, and enjoying their life again. It really was just a natural progression of things to begin serving in that capacity. Not everybody who serves others has to hold a position or a title. It's really just hey, if you've never done that before, let me show you how to do that. Let me tell you how I label my clothes, how I do my own makeup, how, my husband doesn't dress me. He doesn't do my makeup for me. People have asked me that. No, if my husband did my makeup and dressed me, I probably wouldn't look as good as I do. He would tell you the same thing. Sometimes I'm hopeful that somebody's dressing him well.
Amanda, we've got just a few moments left in this conversation, but I mean, just listening to you give that answer, I see why you're so motivating and encouraging to people, and it's really so profound what you just shared. But we like to end each interview on this show with the same question, and that is, what is one way that Tennessee Tech has impacted your life? Oh,
I would say the biggest thing I got out of my time so far at Tennessee Tech is a wicked coffee habit.
That's the first time we've ever gotten this answer, Jonathan.
I was not a coffee drinker before I was a tech student. I was a tea drinker. I was a morning tea drinker. I'd have my 1 cup of tea and go about my day. And one semester in, I was like, tea is fussy.
Tea is not doing it.
It's this, mental process of, boil the water, pour it over the tea. It was a wonderful process. It was great, but
not when you don't have time.
Caffeine. Exactly. I just need to get up. I need to get busy with my day. I need to get onto those classes, get onto those assignments. And my husband would get up and make coffee, a pot of coffee, and there's a pot of coffee sitting there. I don't have to do anything. Just reach over, pour a cup, add my creamer, add my sweetener, and move on. And so, I got a wicked coffee habit.
I'm sure you're not the only caffeine addict that has come out of Tennessee Tech University.
Yeah, well, and so many great places on campus now to get that cup of coffee too.
Absolutely.
Amanda, thank you so much for being our guest today on College Town Talk.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
And one more thing for our listeners. If you're enjoying this show and hearing from inspiring Golden Eagles like Amanda, please do us a favor and leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get this podcast. It all helps to spread the word about the great things happening right here in Cookeville.
We'll meet you back here again next week for more conversations with the people who make Cookeville, Tennessee's college town. College Town Talk is presented by Tennessee Tech University in partnership with the Cookeville-Putnam County Visitors Bureau. Your hosts are Jonathan Frank and Shan Stout, and original music is performed by Andrew Buckner. Visit us online at tntech.edu/collegetowntalk.